Right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the session. So it is 5 past 10, and as we said, we're just going to be allowing people to jump into the session, and the numbers are coming in. I also see that we have a few new names, a few new people who are joining us for the first time. Welcome to our monthly webinar series from Geotab Africa. I'm Enoch, and I'm going to be taking you guys through today's session. So in today's topic, we will be unpacking and discussing the issues relating to distracted driving, as currently it's plaguing fleets as well as fleet owners. So relax and enjoy the session. In today's session, what can we expect? What will we then discussing? Distracted driving, a brief overview just to unpack and go through it. And then also the main reasons why we have distracted driving and why it's such a problem. Available safe stops, permissible drive time, driver fatigue as also one of the issues, as well as outdated communication channels. So, distracted driving, ladies and gentlemen, is the act of driving while engaging in other activities which distract the driver's attention away from the road, right? And distractions are shown to compromise the safety of the driver, passengers, pedestrians, and drivers in other vehicles as well. And amongst other issues, distracted driving is the trucking industry's major pain point. All right. In today's ever growing fleet industry, distracted driving is plaguing fleets, and fleet owners are confronted with the reality of seeking solutions. And to add on to the problem, the widespread utilization of smartphones, distracted driving has become a challenge for the trucking and fleet industry. So, with that being said, a motorist currently can reportedly be fined up to 750 rands for using a mobile phone while driving. However, in the Western Cape, there is also a bylaw which was first introduced back in 2012 that allows road officials to confiscate a motorist's phone for up to 24 hours if they are caught driving while using their phone. And this is whether they were talking, whether they were texting on the phone. And to be honest, distractions can come from many, many sources above and beyond the use of cell phones. However, cell phones are a major contributor. So basically, any activity taking your attention from driving, even for a split second, is then considered distracted driving. And these can range from eating or drinking, in vehicle entertainment, like trying to play radio, switching between stations, or selecting songs. And these are some of the things that you and I and any driver tend to do subconsciously without realizing, smoking, even applying makeup, believe it or not. This results then in unsafe driving, including harsh braking, hard cornering, and speeding, and even worse, fatalities. So there are four types of distracted driving. Number one, we have manual distracted driving, where it's all about taking your hands off the wheel. So, according to the rules of driving, a driver's hands should be ready to steer and basically react in any given situation or emergency. And then, number two, in terms of types of distracted driving, we have visual. So, visual distracted driving is where you take your eyes off the road. Now, this can be for a split second. Now, if you think about it, as I said, some of the things that we normally do without realizing, you're looking for something that fell on the floor in the vehicle while driving. That split second can be the definitive amount of time that you have to react in a given situation. Then we have cognitive or mental distracted driving, where you're thinking about something else while you are driving. And this is more especially in cases of prolonged or driving for more hours. So your mind starts to wander off and you start to think about other things. And the last one being auditory. Now, this is where you're being distracted by things like noise or a ringing phone, a conversation from a passenger, whether it's a person who's sitting next to you. This is where we have your auditory distracted type of driving. So, with all these types of driving, this is where we need to then be conscious of such, especially after this webinar session, whether we are drivers in a trucking industry or day-to-day, drivers like in normal passenger vehicles. Safe stops, or in this case, unavailability of safe stops, is a great challenge and risk to the truck industry, right? Even though a lot of drivers are under pressure to complete or to get to their destinations quicker and avoiding to take a leg stretch or a drive break, risking to drive for longer periods. Some drivers do want to stop and to re-energize. Unfortunately, the lack of sufficient safe stops then hinder the process or hinder these intentions. Drivers who stop at unsafe stops or random parking areas, for that matter, are at risk of things like your hijacking or cargo being stolen, or even worse, losing their job. So failure to secure a safe stop or to take a drive break does not only affect the business, but also affects the driver, the vehicle, and other motorists sharing the road with the truck. Not so long ago, I saw videos of truck drivers who fall asleep behind the wheel and unfortunately losing control and driving into oncoming traffic. Now, this creates an environment that is unsafe and not conducive to drivers' health and well-being, and also other drivers on the road. And as the industry becomes inclusive with the rise of female drivers, the lack of secure parking spaces does not make matters any easier, with the unavailability of your washrooms, rest areas, and proper facilities for women. But all in all, the good news is that the government, via the Department of Transport as well as Sandro, has initiated a program whereby new truck stops are being built to improve truck transport efficiencies and driver job satisfaction, which is what brought us to this topic when we noticed the initiative by the Department of Transport as well as your South African National Roads Agency, which is Sandro. All right. So with all this, this is where we noticed we had Nazir Ali, which is the CEO of the South African National Road Agency, where he reiterated that these truck stops represents a coming together of different departments of government to promote road safety as well as trucker rights. So now the big question is then, how do we keep our drivers safe? Geotab's platform empowers fleet managers to keep drivers safe by tracking their activity in real time, planning routes in advance, and scouting out safe stops along the way. So these are some of the ways that we can use just to see how we can keep drivers safe. And this proactive approach helps to combat the unavailability of safe stops and ensures the well-being of drivers while they are on the road. So number one, we have real-time tracking, where my GeoTab provides real-time tracking of fleet vehicles, and fleet managers can monitor drivers' location and activities whilst they're on the road performing their day-to-day duties. This helps in taking immediate action when drivers encounter unsafe conditions or when safe stops are unavailable. And then we have route planning, where again, the platform allows fleet managers to plan out routes in advance. As I've always learned, that planning eliminates the element of surprise. So fleet managers can use historical data and traffic information to select routes that minimize risks and ensures access to safe stops. By planning routes carefully, managers can avoid sending drivers into potentially unsafe areas. So now, not only are we using the platform to take care of our drivers, but also to take care of our assets in the process. And then the last one, which is scouting out safe and well-lit facilities. Fleet managers basically can use the GeoTab platform to identify and pre-select safe and well-lit facilities along the route. And this can include things like your rest areas, your truck stops, or even service stations with good safety records. And drivers can be then directed to these locations when needed, ensuring that they have access to safe stops during their journeys and while they perform their day-to-day activities. And these are just some of the few ways that fleet managers can use to combat the issue of unavailable safe stops on the road. Another challenge, besides the lack of safe parking or safe spaces, is permissible drive time. According to the labor law in South Africa, drivers are permitted to only be on duty not for more than 10 hours in any one working day. Now, unfortunately, drivers work under pressure to complete their trips quicker, you know, therefore risking to either driving without taking rest stops or driving over their permissible drive time. And this results in increased fatigue and easily distracted driving caused by things like your boredom. And a study on truck road crashes indicated that the main cause of road crashes are 41% fatigue related, and most of these are linked to driving for longer than recommended time. So, fleet managers and supervisors can encourage in trip stops or increase stop time by introducing mandatory vehicle inspections. All right, as an example. So not only will this mitigate the mentioned issues, but also increase driver safety and reduce vehicle downtime. So track inspections help to keep um, track inspections help to keep the road safe, and they protect no one more than the drivers themselves. As a driver, you are the one mostly or most likely to be affected by any mechanical failures. All right. I think let's just quickly take a few questions. Do we have any questions at the moment? I think we do. All right, so no questions. All right, I think we can then continue. Remember, guys, if you have any questions, you can put it on the chat section, and we will then basically deal with your questions as I continue with the session itself. Okay. So driver fatigue, as we mentioned, is then another issue that is currently being faced. So driver fatigue results from one or several factors: physical tiredness, long working hours, or sleep deprivation, which in itself has been described as a main problem also when it comes to distracted or in this case fatigue driving. So fatigue can easily set in during long journeys, particularly when drivers take inadequate rest periods or pauses to help break up the monotony. Irregular or disruptive work schedules can also contribute to making drivers tired. Now, there are medical conditions such as sleep apnea, which can make some individuals more susceptible to driver fatigue. And the lack of sufficient sleep then often causes driver fatigue, and it can lead to chronic health problems like your diabetes, heart diseases, as well as obesity. People who are sleep deprived are more likely to consume high energy sugary food just to try and stay awake, which is then in the long run becoming a health issue, a health problem. So with the surfside camera through geotab, fleet managers and supervisors can identify and mitigate current and future events where drivers are performing their day-to-day duties whilst they are fatigued. So Surfside uses AI technology to detect unused seatbelts, for example, distracted and fatigued drivers. And The platform allows fleet managers access to number one, live stream footage. Number two, event-based recordings. For example, when there's a harsh cornering, cell phone using, or fatigued driving is detected. And then lastly, they also have random recordings that are based on timelines that are made available. So all in all, fleet-based organizations can then identify the number of times that drivers are fatigued. And this is where they can choose to either introduce or to ramp up their strategies to help drivers reduce fatigued driving contributors. So how do we then combat driver fatigue? So driver fatigue management goes down to, for example, what I said in terms of the surf site or our integrated camera solutions from my GeoTab platform. Fleet-based organizations can use the surf-side camera um, to mitigate and to identify issues as highlighted, and also allowing them to be two steps ahead, identifying driving behavior that is more potentially to lead to, for example, an accident, and to act before it happens. So in this case, assisting to be proactive. So driver fatigue management is basically the responsibility of both fleet organizations and their drivers to maintain the safety of their drivers and encourage best practices behind the wheel. Now, this is why GeoTab offers fleet dashboard camera integrations that offer added benefits for fleet management with great features, including your recording and saving collision footages and identifying impaired or distracted driving, and a live view of drivers' routes that can be then triggered by events as mentioned, your speeding, harsh braking, or even seat belts. And by installing dash cams, companies are prioritizing fleet and driver safety while gaining an extra layer of visibility into their on-road operations. So GeoTab offers a number of dashcam options, safety reports, and many other safety solutions in the GeoTab marketplace that can be integrated with the My GeoTab platform. Now, this can make it easier to manage all fleet cameras from one cloud-based dashboard. In the ever evolving landscape of fleet-based organizations or the fleet industry, the safety of drivers and road users is of paramount importance. Today, we address a critical concern that affects the trucking industry and contributes to distracted driving: the use of outdated communication channels. Now, these obsolete systems not only jeopardizes road safety, but also results in missed notifications and unreliable network coverage. GeoTap Africa is committed to resolving these challenges by offering innovative solutions that enhances communication, mitigate distractions, and ultimately make our roads more safer. Now, a good example is a driver who's driving in an unknown road or area and fearing over speeding at the same time. So some drivers will use navigational apps, that will normally indicate in red if a driver is over speeding or over the speed limit in that particular area. That constant action can distract a driver, leading to an avoidable accident. So with my GeoTab's audible alerts and GeoTab GoTalk device, drivers will be alerted conveniently when they are over the speed limit, for example, right? And another GeoTab Africa solution to outdated communication channels issue is the GeoTab Drive app or the driver app. This is a mobile app that streamlines activities as well as putting all activities as well as your day-to-day operations into one platform, where things like your electric vehicle logging, your compliance, your vehicle inspection reports, driver identification, as well as a two-way messaging platform can be then accessible. Now, the application allows drivers to record hours of service and perform vehicle inspections pre, during, and post every trip. These inspections can then easily be recorded on their device. All right. So the feature is excellent for maintaining two-way communication between the driver and the control room. Drivers and fleet managers can maintain correspondence with instant messages, and the app can be then customized by creating custom responses. And one can then ask, what would be the added advantage of having customized responses? So, in a time of responding, drivers do not have to then attend to their cell phone composing a full text, but can then rather simply click and send their custom based or custom created reports or responses, sorry. So GeoTap Drive is then convenient, and it's also a paperless function or paperless operation to allow drivers to not waste time while trying to abide to compliance or organizational requirements and policies. Now, as you can see here, with the GeoTap Drive app, this is where things like driver identification as well as added security, where drivers uses their own login details to access the platform. They can do things like your inspections and send the reports then to fleet managers. All right. So in conclusion, to combat the current issues pressing the fleet and truck industry when it comes to distracted driving, fleet managers can use GeoTap Africa as a solution, an open platform that can be integrated into some of your existing systems that you have put in place. Solutions such as the GoTalk device that provides state-of-the-art in-cab coaching, where fleet managers allow drivers to take first-hand responsibility and accountability of their actions and driving behavior with audible alerts. The GeoTap Drive app, as we've just touched on right now, not only is this one safe for drivers to take driver breaks, but using the time to also conduct vehicle inspections using a paperless platform. Fleet dash cams. Using the latest technology, the, the AI camera can identify drivers not using things like seatbelts, distracted by constantly looking elsewhere besides the road, or smoking, distracted by using cell phones. And for how long are they actually distracted? So, all in all, identifying coachable areas to sort of be proactive when it comes to trying and mitigating these issues. So my GeoTab is the number one stop solution to your fleet challenges and the best way to help fleet managers stay ahead of the game, especially in the fast-paced fleet industry. So to learn more about all the solutions that I've touched on today and more, you can basically then visit our website or get in touch with one of our solutions specialists. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, it basically then brings us to the end of our webinar session for distracted driving. All right. If we have any questions, let me see if we have any questions at the moment. Right, I see that we don't have at the moment. So remember that if you're watching this video at a later stage, if you're watching, if you tuned in with us right now on the session and you have any questions at a later stage, you can just basically then drop your questions in the Q&A or in our chat sections, and our sales team, as well as highly advanced and experienced support team, will be getting in touch with you. At the bottom, you will see that we also have our communication channels that you can use, our website, as well as our direct number that you can call us on. All right. If you have any questions, I'm just going to stay in the session for 5 minutes or so. If you have any questions, this is your opportunity just to throw your questions at me. In the meantime, thank you so much for joining, and remember to subscribe and to follow our YouTube channel just to also be, in the front end of receiving any future webinars and also receiving newsletters as to how you can improve your fleet. So from my side, thank you very much. I do hope to see you again in our next webinar series. All right, Sujan?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing very good, and how are you?
Fine. I work with a company called Admiral Mobility, and we are supplying electric vehicles, electric commercial vehicles into Africa. So we
Admirable.
just
You said it's admirable mobility.
Admiral Mobility. Yes.
Admirable. Yes, sir.
Admiral, like a colonel, Admiral.
Yeah, no, no. Thank you. I've got it. Yes.
Right.